Hi, this is Dan Bullard, retired electronics engineer, doing another video from the front deck of my houseboat out here on beautiful Multnomah Channel. It's really nice. I got my heater here. Sorry if it makes noise. You're just going to have to listen to it. I'm going to talk about law number 2 from an article, 3 Proofs of Law number 2. And it's kind of interesting. It's kind of similar to something I did last time. It's where I clip the top and bottom of a wave off. I say 1%, 2%, or 4%. Now I don't clip off 1% or 2% or 4% of the wave. What I do is I go and I clip off 1%, 2%, or 4% from the transfer function. Okay, I use a VLOOKUP table in Excel to make a transfer function, and it works great. And I wrote an article about that, and you'll find it on my webpage, www.danbullard.com. So go look at that. And so I clip off 1, 2, or 4% in the transfer function, and that equates to something, who knows what, in the actual wave. Okay, and I clip that off. I get the time domain wave. I do an FFT on it, and I do this in my book, Distortion and Harmonics, both of them. And so I get these spectrums, or spectra, that you can see have these humps in them. And the closer you get to 90 degrees, the fewer humps you have. In fact, if you can clip it exactly 90 degrees, which is pretty difficult, you'll get no humps. You'll get just a flat response. And I point that out in my book. It's pretty cool. Read my book if you want to. You don't have to. You can read my articles. But I get 13 humps, I think, in with the 4%, and then half of that with the 2%, and even fewer than that with the 1%. Now, in the books, I use the aliases. I'm trying to avoid using the aliases in this article to make things simpler for you, because most people are freaked out by aliases, and I don't want to freak people out, so I skip it. So it's now, I think it's 6 humps, 4 humps, and 3 humps for the 4%, 2%, and 1%. And those humps, I couldn't figure out where they came from. And when I was working at Maxim Integrated Products, I had a friend who had a master's degree. He's the guy that got me hired there. And we were working on a project together, and he had a problem. And so we pulled out a spectrum analyzer, and we looked at this thing, and I saw these humps. And I said, "Terry, what is that?" And he said, "Oh, that's just some artifacts." I'm like, bullshit, it's real, it's mathematical, you can tell. And it turns out I am the only person to ever figure out where these humps came from. And it's law number 2 of the Bullard laws of harmonics. The angle where the harmonics, where the distortion happens, the angle where it happens in the sine wave. And so if you get closer to the 90 degree point, you get fewer humps. And if you go further down the wave, you get more humps. Now eventually, amazingly, when you get back down to the 0 point, to the 0 crossing, you get fewer humps again. It kind of recycles. It's pretty cool. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of the books. But anyway, so here's the article I'm talking about, 3 Proofs of Law 2. What I do is I clip the top and bottom of the wave off, and then you get this beautiful picture that shows the top and bottom clipped off. Because what I did was, not only did I clip the top and bottom of the wave off, but I then went in and I used complex math to add 6 dB or 12 dB or 18 dB or 24 dB to the harmonics. I left the fundamental alone. I didn't change the amplitude of the fundamental. That would be counterproductive. But if I hold the fundamental the same, and I go in and change the harmonics without affecting the harmonic signature, the humpiness, then I get these really cool pictures. So what was a flat spot becomes a convex or concave depression at the positive peak, and on the negative peak it does the same thing. It becomes convex going outwards or concave going inwards if the phase is negative. And it's complex math, and I don't really like going into complex math. You're welcome to. I'm not afraid of it, I just don't like talking about it. It's too complex. It's too hard for people to understand. Now, when I do the 4%, I'm clipping at 66 degrees and 113 degrees. Now that's the positive peak, and the negative peak, I'm clipping the complementary side. And I don't know what those angle numbers are, I didn't write them down. Doesn't matter. It's the complementary side. And when you do that, you can see how these amplitudes are turned into concave or convex distortions of the wave. Not only that though, if you look at this one picture here, you'll see there's a bunch of different colors. I use different colors to specify which multiplier I use, whether I use 6 dB or 12 dB or whatever. And the blue line, let's take a look at the blue line. The blue line is the biggest positive peak here. That goes as high up as anything else, and it comes from a very low place. The blue line is also the lowest in the body of the wave. Okay? So, why is that? Why is it that the biggest hump becomes the lowest amplitude in the sine wave? That's because of law number 1, Bullard laws of harmonics number 1. The amplitude of the distortion, or the amplitude of the harmonic, is equivalent or proportional to the area. The area is what controls it. And so because I've made this waveform bigger, taller at the positive peak, it contains more area. And I cover this in quite a lot of detail in my book. So I have a lot more area. Well, I have to compensate for that because I'm not getting rid of anything. I'm not changing the amplitude of the fundamental. I'm not allowing it to move. And so the amplitude of the wave body has to go down. And that's why the blue line is the lowest signal until it goes way up, comes back down, and goes low again, and stays low. And it does the same thing on the negative side. The red signal does the opposite. It has the biggest concave dip, and it has the highest amplitude in the body of the wave. So the area stays the same because I didn't allow the fundamental to change. I only allowed the amplitudes of the harmonics to change. And the harmonics are what causes the distortions. The body of the wave doesn't change at all. So that's what happens with the 4% distortion. And if you look at the spectrum, and here's a diagram of the spectrum. The spectrum shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 humps. So 6 humps in the spectrum. Again, each of those dots specifies 6 dB difference. And so I'm adding 6 dB to the distortion. That makes the signal go up on the positive peak or down on the negative peak. But if I use a negative phase, that is, in my complex math, I use a negative phase, and that causes it to go down in the positive peak to a concave pulse and up on the negative peak for another concave. So that's how you do the 4%. The 4% has 6 humps, and you can see it there. And again, guy with a master's degree at Maximum Integrated Products told me these were just artifacts. No, they're not just artifacts. This is why I have such a low opinion of people with degrees. I'm terribly sorry if you have a degree. I'm terribly sorry. I don't mean to offend you, but that's just the way it is. Guys with degrees, they listen to what their professors tell them. Half of the stuff that my professors told me when I was in the Navy schools and in my first year of college, they were wrong. And so you can't listen to these people. And people with degrees, they got to remember that. In fact, there's a book out there called The Half-Life of Facts. It says that when a doctor finally becomes a doctor, when he starts college, between the time he starts college and the time he becomes a doctor, half the stuff that he learned is wrong, is proven wrong. Well, you have to keep learning, and that's what I'm doing here right now. I'm helping you to learn stuff that other people are wrong about. They're full of shit. Okay, I'm going to do the 2% now. So the 2% is a beautiful picture, but notice that it's narrower because I did a narrower angle, right? The angle is 73 degrees and 106 degrees, and so the angle moves it in, so it gets narrower. Also, when you clip off that area of the fundamental of the waveform, it's a smaller chunk of the wave, right? And so it creates smaller convex or concave signals. Now it also, because those things are smaller, it also doesn't boost up the amplitude of the body of the wave near as much. And so the blue signal that you see here is not near as big, it's not near as positive going. The scale change in this display quite a bit. And it doesn't deviate as much from the other waves in the body of the wave. Okay? And then showing that law 2 is true, looking at the spectrum, you see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 humps. 4 humps because the angle on the positive side is 73.7 degrees and 106.2 degrees. So the angle where the distortion happens is what causes those humps. Okay? And you have to be like dead nuts on with the angle, with the numbers, because if you're not, if those numbers change at all, then your spectrum dances around. And that's what I'm trying to show in this animated GIF that shows how it all works. Okay, now going to the 1% example. The 1% example, it's a beautiful picture, but notice that, again, the scale has changed in this picture. And because I'm only doing 1%, so I'm clipping just the very tip top, very bottom of the wave, I get very small little bumps there, convex and concave. And the body of the wave doesn't change that much because the area didn't change. So the area of the wave overall didn't change because the positive, well, law 1, but the positive peak, wow, there's a bald eagle out there. The positive peak, it doesn't change that much, and so the body of the wave doesn't have to change that much. And here, instead of 73.7 degrees, it's 78 degrees and 101.47 degrees. And so the angle is moved in, everything's narrower, and so the area is less. And because of the angle changing, that means, looking at the spectrum, we get 1, 2, 3 humps. So when the angle goes down, when the angle gets closer to 90 degrees, the number of humps goes down. Okay? Now if you keep going in, if you keep moving it in, then the number of humps goes down smaller and smaller and smaller. If you go to 90 degrees, and again, it's hard to clip at exactly 90 degrees, but I do it in my book. You clip at 9 degrees, you get no humps at all, period, no humps. It's flat. And it's really cool. And so that's how I came up with the Bullard harmonic solution. The Bullard harmonic solution is a mathematical formula that allows you to predict. That's what science does. It allows you to predict the future. It allows you to predict how many humps you're going to get for a given angle. And it shows that the angle is a crucial element. Okay. So this article shows you how law 2 works and how the angle determines the number of humps that are real, they're not artifacts, the number of humps in the wave. are in the spectrum, and how you can go in and mess with the harmonics. You could do that, and it's complex math, but it's not that hard. You're doing it in Excel. It's pretty easy. Excel handles complex math pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Anyway, so that's the article, 3 Proofs of the Law Number 2. It covers a lot of stuff, and I think I covered most of it here. Take a look at it. What I want you to do is I want you to open your mind. Don't be like the doctors, 14 years after they started college, they're practicing medicine and they still believe what the professor told them in their freshman year. That's bullshit. Things change. I figured this stuff out. Nobody else did. You're not going to find this stuff anywhere on the web or in any book. They're all friggin' idiots. Thanks a lot for your time. See you later.